So, you're standing in your kitchen at 3 a.m., staring into the fridge for the third time, wondering what you came here for. Or maybe you're walking into a room and suddenly your brain just goes completely blank. You know that feeling when you're holding your phone while frantically searching for your phone? Congratulations! You've just experienced what neuroscientists call everyday memory failures, and you're definitely not alone. The truth is, forgetting obvious things isn't a sign that you're stupid. It's actually a sign that your brain is working exactly as designed, which is both comforting and terrifying. Your brain is basically a really expensive computer running on 3.7 billion-year-old software that someone forgot to update for modern life. Think of it as trying to run TikTok on Windows 95. Most people think memory works like a filing cabinet where you put important stuff in important folders and less important stuff in less important folders. But that's not how it works at all. Your brain is more like a really disorganized teenager's bedroom where sometimes the homework is under the bed and sometimes the bed is on top of the homework. Neuroscientists call this the constructive nature of memory, but I prefer to call it why did I walk into this room syndrome? The problem starts with something called attention residue, which is a real psychological concept discovered by Dr. Sophie Leroy. This is when part of your brain is still thinking about the last thing you were doing while you're trying to do something else. So when you walk into the kitchen to get water, but you were just scrolling TikTok, part of your brain is still wondering whether that dance was actually good or just popular. It's like having 17 browser tabs open in your head, and the water tab isn't the active one. Here's what actually happens when you forget obvious things. According to cognitive psychology, your brain has two main systems for processing information. First identified by psychologist Daniel Kahneman. System 1 is fast, automatic, and handles routine stuff without you thinking about it. System 2 is slow, deliberate, and kicks in when you need to actually think. The problem is System 1 is basically that friend who always says, "Yeah, I got this," and then definitely does not have it. While System 2 is like that really smart friend who could help, but is usually too busy overthinking whether cereal counts as soup. When you're doing something routine, like walking to get your keys, System 1 takes over. But if something interrupts that routine, like your roommate asking if you've seen their charger, System 1 gets confused and System 2 is too busy thinking about whether you actually have seen their charger to remember why you were walking in the first place. Psychologists call this task switching, and it's like trying to change lanes while texting while eating a burrito. Something's gonna get dropped, and it's probably not the burrito. This is why you can remember every single lyric to Mr. Brightside by The Killers, but you can't remember where you put your wallet 5 minutes ago.
Actually, I can.
Your brain thinks song lyrics might be socially useful someday. Plus, they have rhythm and rhyme, which are memory superpowers. But your wallet? That's just a routine object that System 1 handles. And System 1 has the memory capacity of a goldfish with ADHD. The worst part is that the more obvious something is, the more likely you are to forget it. This is because obvious things feel so obvious that your brain doesn't bother to actually pay attention to them. It's like your brain is constantly saying, "Oh yeah, I'll definitely remember this super obvious thing," and then immediately starts thinking about something else. Your brain also has what scientists call the paradox of choice, but I call it the McDonald's menu effect. When you have too many things to remember, your brain just gives up and forgets everything. This is why you can remember to do 17 complicated things for work, but you forget to eat lunch. But here's the thing that no one tells you about memory. The reason you forget obvious things isn't because your memory is bad. It's because you're trying to remember everything instead of remembering the right things. Your brain has limited storage space, like a phone that's constantly running out of memory because you have too many apps and photos of food you'll never look at again. Now let's talk about why this happens on a deeper level, because understanding the problem is half the solution, and the other half is actually doing something about it, which, let's be honest, most people won't. Your brain has something called the forgetting curve, which was discovered by a German guy named Hermann Ebbinghaus, who spent way too much time memorizing nonsense syllables. What he found is that you forget most new information within the first hour, unless you do something to make it stick. But here's where it gets interesting. The forgetting curve doesn't apply equally to all information. Your brain has built-in filters that decide what's worth remembering based on three main criteria: emotional significance, repetition, and survival relevance. Emotional significance is why you remember embarrassing moments from middle school, but forget where you put your glasses. Your brain thinks embarrassment might kill you, but glasses are just tools. Repetition is why you know your phone number, but forget your coworker's name. And survival relevance is why you remember that one time you almost got hit by a car, but forget to water your plants. The problem with obvious things is they rarely trigger any of these filters. Taking your keys when you leave the house? Not emotionally significant. Where you put your water bottle? You do it every day, but it's slightly different each time, so no repetition pattern. Whether you locked the door? Not immediately survival relevant. This creates what I call the obviousness trap. The more obvious something seems, the less attention you pay to it. The less attention you pay to it, the more likely you are to forget it. The more you forget obvious things, the more you start to think you have a bad memory. But you don't have a bad memory, you just have a normal human brain that wasn't designed for modern life. Think about it this way. Your ancestors needed to remember where they left their spear and whether they saw tiger tracks near the watering hole. They didn't need to remember 17 different passwords, where they parked in a lot with 3,000 identical spaces, or whether they already added salt to the pasta water. Your brain is still running on ancient software trying to handle modern problems. It's like trying to run the latest video game on a computer from 1995. It's not that the computer is broken, it's just not designed for this. But here's something cool about how memory actually works. Your brain doesn't store memories like files on a computer. Instead, it stores them like a recipe. Every time you remember something, your brain rebuilds that memory from scratch using whatever ingredients are available at the moment. This is why memories change over time and why two people can remember the same event completely differently. Your brain isn't lying to you, it's just working with limited ingredients, and sometimes it has to improvise. This also explains why you can remember something perfectly until the moment you actually need it. When you're relaxed, your brain has access to all the ingredients. But when you're stressed or distracted, some of those ingredients become unavailable, so your brain can't rebuild the memory properly. So how do you actually fix this? The answer isn't to get a better memory, it's to work with the memory you have instead of against it. First, stop trying to remember everything and start trying to remember the right things. Your brain is not a storage unit, it's a processing center. The goal isn't to cram more stuff in there, it's to make the important stuff easier to find when you need it. The most effective technique is something called environmental design. Instead of trying to remember to do something, change your environment so you can't forget. Want to remember to take your vitamins? Put them next to your toothbrush. Want to remember your lunch? Put your car keys in the fridge next to it. This sounds stupid, but it works because you're using your environment as an external memory system. Next, use what psychologists call implementation intentions. Instead of saying, I need to remember to call mom, say, when I finish dinner, I will call mom. Your brain is much better at remembering conditional statements than abstract tasks. It's the difference between giving your brain a vague suggestion and giving it specific instructions. For things you need to remember in the moment, use the power of narration. When you put your keys down, say out loud, I'm putting my keys on the kitchen counter. When you park your car, say, I'm parking in section B, row 5. This forces your brain to pay attention and creates both a visual and auditory memory. You can also hack your brain's survival instincts by making things seem more important than they actually are. When you need to remember something, ask yourself, what would happen if I forgot this? And then imagine the worst-case scenario in vivid detail. Your brain will think it's survival relevant and pay more attention. But the most powerful technique is something called the memory palace, which sounds fancy but is actually just using locations you know well to store information. Pick a route you know by heart, like from your front door to your bedroom. Then assign each thing you need to remember to a specific location on that route. For example, if you need to remember to buy milk, pay rent, and call your dentist, you might imagine a giant milk carton blocking your front door, your landlord sitting on your couch demanding rent, and your dentist waiting in your bedroom with a drill. The more ridiculous the image, the better you'll remember it. The reason this works is because your brain is incredible at remembering spatial information. You can probably navigate your childhood home in the dark, even if you haven't been there in years. Memory palaces let you use that spatial memory system for non-spatial information. But here's the thing nobody tells you about memory techniques. They only work if you actually use them consistently. Your brain needs time to build new habits, and most people give up after trying something once or twice. It takes about 21 days to form a new habit, but it takes about 66 days for that habit to become automatic. The key is to start small. Pick one thing you always forget and use one technique consistently for a month. Once that becomes automatic, add another thing. If you try to change everything at once, you'll just end up forgetting to use your memory techniques, which is ironically the most obvious thing you could forget. Remember, the goal isn't to have a perfect memory. The goal is to remember the things that actually matter and not waste mental energy on things that don't. Your brain is doing its best with the equipment it has. You just need to learn how to be a better programmer. So the next time you forget something obvious, don't get mad at yourself. Just remember that you're not broken. You're just human. And being human means your brain is optimized for surviving in the wild, not for remembering where you put your AirPods in a world with a million places to put AirPods. The solution isn't to fight your brain, it's to work with it. Use your environment, create systems, and make the obvious things impossible to forget. Your future self will thank you, assuming they remember to.